Hi, everyone. This is Jose Velazquez from Higher Military, and I am so excited today to bring you an amazing program and encourage you to comment and participate in it as well. So this segment is sponsored by American Corporate Partners. ACP's free mentoring program connects veterans, active duty, and military spouses with leading industry corporate professionals for customized mentorships, as they like to call it. Find your next career with ACP. So today I'd like to introduce you to two amazing women who have wonderful stories that I'm really looking forward to sharing with you. So first is our mentor, Dana Gray. She's a regional sales manager for Gatorade. So if you've ever enjoyed the drink, like most of us have, we're really looking forward to talking to her. She's a busy executive, of course, but she has been in many industries and has worked her way from the very bottom to the very top. And so we're really excited to have you on, Dana. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
In addition to that, our protege is Sarah Hobson. So Sarah is Air Force, a former Air Force member, active duty. What's interesting with her is she was also Air Guard. And as of a few days ago, she's somewhat jobless. Well, she's a student. And so we're really looking forward to having a full conversation with her as well. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So real quick, I'd just like to encourage all of our viewers to share their comments in the comment section. We'll definitely get to them. In addition to that, we've got members of the ACP team here who can share programmatic specifics with you about both becoming a mentor or a protege to the program. So we'll definitely have that discussion in the comment section. And trust me, if one of you has an answer for another one of you, please jump in and answer. I mean, this is a community. And of course, Dana and Sarah are here, and we'll pop up some questions as we go. So first of all, Sarah, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit more about, oh, by the way, before I move into the questions, I wanted to share. So Dana and Sarah were not mentor and protege to each other. Both of them were mentor and protege to someone else, but that actually makes it really interesting because we can have a full discussion of their individual experiences. So that's going to be really good. So, but Sarah, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit more about your transition. Obviously, you went from active duty to National Guard, and then you've decided to leave the Guard and move into, I guess, full-time being a student. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I was active duty from 2019 to 13, and then I joined the National Guard. But while I was in the National Guard, I was a DoD employee. And then this last year, I made the decision to go ahead and just transition out of the military altogether and focus on school. In the meantime, I was going through a lot of mentorship programs like ACP, and was paired with an exceptional mentor named Jill. And Jill has been working with me over the past about 8 months on transitioning. What I love about Jill, one of the many things I love about her, is that she's not military affiliated. So I get a very fresh perspective of what civilian life really, truly looks like. Another thing that I've really enjoyed is learning from her. She's been in the healthcare industry for over 20 years now and has a ton of knowledge that she's been very kind in sharing with me. So as the transition continues, I am continuing to work with my ACP mentor, and it's been great.
That's amazing. That's really terrific. I'm really excited about learning more about that. I think that it's so incredible for our mentors to have, in some respects, to have very little experience with the military because it's so fresh. And sometimes we like to, believe we're really independent thinkers. And I don't mean that we're not independent thinkers, but surely for many of us who are serving, we do think inside the box, and it's always pretty cool to have, that outside perspective. And speaking of that, Dana, talk to us. How in the world does a busy executive find time to mentor?
Well, I don't know that I would call myself a full-on executive. However, I like the promotion. I think that you just have to look at what's important to you. I have always been very military oriented, just not that I was ever in the military, but I've always had a great respect for those who are in the military. And when our CEO asked us if anybody would be interested in getting involved in ACP, I was like, I jumped at the chance.
Yeah.
Any way that we can, you know, any way that we can kind of give back to those who are giving so much to us, I felt like it was my duty to get involved.
That's so meaningful. I appreciate that. I love the fact that we get a chance to work with corporate partners who are so open to the idea of, you know, spending time supporting our service members as they're transitioning. So, Sarah, as you transitioned, what were some of the hurdles that you may have experienced throughout your transition that not necessarily made it difficult for you, but that were, you know, challenges that were somewhat unexpected?
Absolutely. That's such a great question. And I feel like there's endless possibilities of answers to that. But my main, I guess, hurdle to overcome in transitioning was I'm a jack of all trades. The military has, you know, trained me very well in a number of different things. So finding out what my passion is and what I'm good at and what I want to do has been really difficult, because I sat down and made a list of everything that I've done in the military, and translating that to civilian, I could be anything from an executive secretary to, in my mind, a CEO. So it was just very interesting, and had to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of hard questions with Jill, like, you know, what about the healthcare industry do you love or not love, and things of that nature, because I do have a healthcare background. But that's been my main thing, is finding out, what do I want to do? What am I good at? And how does that get into a civilian career?
Yeah, I can imagine that's absolutely difficult. I figure that that's likely the, you know, one of the big questions that many of us have. And Dana, you may have heard that from your protege as well, is, you know, it's very difficult because we do tend to be jacks of all trades across the board. And so it, you know, sometimes really kind of learning to focus on a particular specialty or area can be very difficult. Was that your experience with your protege as well?
You know, absolutely. And I'm glad to hear that Jill walked Sarah through that, because that's one of the questions. This was my second protege, actually. And that was like one of the first questions I asked. What do you love? You know, I love that saying that, you know, if you have a job that you love, then you'll never work another day in your life. And I really wanted to take that to the next level with both of my proteges, and just figure out, hey, what are you passionate about? What can you see yourself doing? And I think that's another thing, is being a jack of all trades. Even when you go to like the resume part of the business, it's like the resume is 5 pages long for someone who's been in the military, because they've got so much experience. So how do we hone that down to something that is going to be civilian understandable, right? And I love that Jill took Sarah through that as well. So it makes me feel like I was on the right track.
No, absolutely. I agree. And I'll tell you, I learned that from my mentor. And by the way, I'm a 2-time protege, so I guess I'm a slow learner. But I had, you know, a great inspiration from my 2 mentors over the years. And one of the things that they taught me was that the resume was a living document, and that it was okay for it to change dependent on my interests. And so initially, and not that you guys were interviewing me, but initially I recognized that, you know, my interests were in a particular area, but over time they merged and went into another. So Sarah, I recognize that you are focused on the medical industry, the healthcare industry. What interested you about that area, and, you know, what direction are you looking to go into?
So I have been healthcare in some way or another since 2009, when I joined the military. I started out as a dental assistant, and then I ended up doing more program management for dental, ended up managing my own dental clinic twice, and then I was a healthcare administrator for a little while. So I love healthcare, love helping people, love serving in the healthcare industry. And that's what I'm good at. So I'm going to stay in healthcare. What I don't necessarily find myself interested in the healthcare industry is managing people, which tends to be a little bit problematic because a lot of mid-level management is managing people. So through the course of 12 years in the military, that's what I discovered, is that I can do things like that, but why force myself to do something that I'm not good at?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I really appreciate the fact that you are doing something that you did in the service, but in addition to that, recognizing the areas that you don't like. One of the things that I invite people to do when we're having a conversation, not that I'm an expert in any way, but I surely recognize that we may or may not love everything about what we did. And if there are particular areas that we didn't like doing, even if we were really good at them, maybe we shouldn't do them any longer. And I love what Dana said. Find something that that you love, and you won't ever have to work a day in your life. So, Dana, I have to ask. Obviously, you're a great success, and in your company, and so is that something that motivates you? Is doing something that you love around people that you love? Is that something that keeps you going?
Yeah, I think that my dad taught me that saying when I was quite young, and I've always done things that were kind of outside of the box for me. This being Women's History Month, I've traditionally had jobs that were, quote unquote male jobs. I was a milkman. I hung drywall. I mean, I've done a number of things, but I've always been very passionate about what I did. And with PepsiCo, when I started with PepsiCo, I went in like at the lower sales level, and I just loved working with people. I loved fixing their problems, and I really liked being able to see what accomplishments I made personally. Not that I needed accolades for them, but it was just a personal pride thing that I wanted to make sure that whatever I did, I was the best at it.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of that in the military. I see my daughter is actually in the United States Coast Guard, and I just see a lot of that kind of, call it pride of ownership, that folks take pride in what they do. They want to be the very best, and they're willing to put the work in to do it. So that's what drives me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I love the fact that you highlighted, of course, this being Women's History Month, because, I recognize and appreciate so many of my leaders, so many of my colleagues, and so many of my fellow soldiers who have contributed so much in service, and of course, so much across industry as well. It's really inspiring. So we've got a lot of questions coming in. Some are programmatic, so I invite you to continue to ask those questions. Again, we've got members of the ACP team, and someone asked what ACP stood for. They came in a little late. It's American Corporate Sponsors, and they have a free mentoring program. And Sarah was a part of that as a protege, and Dana was a part of that as a mentor. So Sarah, tell me a little bit more about your relationship with your mentor. And, obviously you worked across an entire year. My experience was that I really connected with my mentor and befriended her. And I guess the year kind of came and went, and I maintained a professional relationship with her because she was so meaningful to me. I don't know if that's a similar experience to you.
Absolutely. I hope Jill is my mentor forever. And I told her that. I was like, you are a gem. One of the things that I really love about ACP is that they did an excellent job in matching me with a mentor that has over 20 years experience in the healthcare industry, civilian, in Texas. So she knows a little bit of the culture, right? And just very honest and open. So Millie Donnelly is the ACP health individual who paired us together, and she did a great job. So all that said, Jill is fantastic. We have gone over everything and anything you can possibly think of, from resume writing to using the STAR interview method to salary negotiations to what do I want to do. And I even asked her a lot of really difficult questions like, you know, if you were in my situation, what would you do? And just really got a very mature response, which is what I needed. Another thing that I really value about Jill is that she doesn't sugarcoat things. She's very direct. She gave me homework and she said, next time I want this and this and this done. And I love that. I love having homework because that means I'm engaging in this process too. And I have results in, you know, the next 2 weeks to go present to her and be like, hey, look what I did. But I absolutely am very grateful for Jill and for her mentorship, and hope she's my mentor literally for as long as she will have me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Dana, let me ask you, I recognize that for us in the service, of course, you know, we get paid what our rank is and how many years, you know, our pay is, you know, public record. So, you know, I make what everyone else makes around me at the same years of service, at the same rank. And when we get promoted, we know what our pay is going to be. I know salary negotiations are something that we are likely uncomfortable with. Some people might be more comfortable than others, but I surely wasn't. You know, things like salary negotiations, things like writing resumes and changing our language to civilian speak are areas that may be common to our mentors in helping us. Were there particular areas that for both of your proteges you really kind of focused on that that you found that, you know, are relatively common to us service members?
Yeah, I would take that right back to the resume. I actually elicited the help of a very good friend of mine who is a corporate headhunter. Because again, we all have our own strengths. That's not one of mine. I mean, she knows what all of these large corporations are looking for. So I reached out to her and I brought my protege's resume to her, and we met with my protege, and she went over all the, you know, the reasons why all of your experience does not need to be in that resume. What needs to be there is those bullets that start the conversation. I think that was really key, and I just think that I'll have to put this little, you know, tidbit in there, is that I learned just as much from my protege that both of my proteges learned from me. I mean, I learned something in each one of the experiences. And I think that as long as you're open to, as long as a mentor, you don't go in thinking you're going to solve every problem or every, you know, little thing that this person has in the civilian world, as long as you're open and you look to figure out what you can learn from them, it's a great partnership. I would call it just that, a partnership versus, you know, anything else.
That's awesome. I agree with you. I mean, I think that there is just so much that goes into that relationship, and there is a lot of give and take. And
Mm-hmm.
and I've learned ACP really focuses on finding people that are, you know, and I joke, I say this every week, that they have like a magic gremlin. They have a special AI software program that focuses and finds the right mentor for the right protege, because, you know, not everyone is focused on becoming the CEO of a corporation. Some people want to turn wrenches. Some people want to drive trucks. Some people, you know, are passionate about mechanics or engineering or any one of these 1,000 areas. And so, you know, so I just find that there is great quality in that. But I find as well that many of the mentors, they use their network of people. I don't know if Sarah had this experience, and I'm going to ask you, Sarah. You know, my mentor spent a lot of time. She didn't have all the answers, and Dana really, you know, made me think about this. Is she didn't have all the answers, but she knew someone who did in her company, and so she would find someone for me to talk to almost every week, and I gained so much from that. Was that your experience? Did your mentor kind of point you toward other people and just open your network up a little bit?
So a lot of my network, as far as like resume writing and LinkedIn and things of that nature, had already been built. I really went to Jill for that civilian input. She did distribute my resume to a number of people, but as far as those other key components of transitioning, I already had the foundation for it. I just needed a little something extra, which was a perspective from someone not in San Antonio, because we have our language that we speak and our cliques that we kind of go to. So she provided that for me, which is really all I was looking for. Had I asked for additional resources, I'm sure she would have given them to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's terrific. And I, I find that it's really important for mentors and really and proteges to recognize each other's needs and really provide those for each other. So while you're on the screen, let me ask you this. Obviously, networking is important. And in the digital landscape of this last year, I have to assume that networking changed likely from personal to digital for you. You talked about LinkedIn and you talked about kind of the professional networks. How important has digital networking been for you?
Imperative. I had built all of these relationships on seeing people in person. There's a number of different organizations around San Antonio that held events that I would go to. And I didn't hang out with these people on a regular basis outside of these events, but those connections and the network that I had worked so hard to build was critical in maintenance. It requires maintenance. It requires work. It requires reaching out to someone on LinkedIn that you met at LinkedIn Mill City or something like that and saying, hey, remember me? You and I talked about such and such, and it jogs their memory. So gosh, maintaining that network has been very important. And the only way to really do it lately, since I guess about a year ago, has been through email and phone calls and things of that nature. So imperative, absolutely.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Dana, for you, I'd ask a similar question, but in a different way. I recognize that you're already established in a company. So I think a lot of people tend to believe who are transitioning from the military that there comes a day when you've networked enough and you're good. Is that the case, or do you continue to maintain those digital connections and personal connections and build your network?
I would say absolutely not. I mean, you can never, ever stop networking because as your career changes, it opens up a whole new room, call it, or a whole new area that you don't have those connections in, and cross-functionally, as well as into different companies and so on and so forth. I think it's vital for everybody to make sure that they continue to network. If you're interested in in something, start reaching out to different people and building your network in your interest. And this can go into not only business, but into your personal life. I think networking is a large part of what all of us do every day. And especially now, like we're all in a virtual world, just being able to connect. I think that also on that strain, being able to connect face to face like we're doing right now, but also connecting off of the camera screen and jumping on a phone call and having that connection. Yeah. I think it's important also to remember that there's no inflection in email. So you may be saying something and people might not understand exactly your tone. So it's important to make sure that you continue to connect as personally as possible in these times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that you talked about that, because you're absolutely right. I mean, these are very two-dimensional platforms, and we do have to recognize that there has to be a combination between just the two-dimensional platform and the connectivity and warmth of a voice, even if it's over a phone. So that is absolutely important. And of course, we use some of these, social platforms as well that we connect with, the Zooms and the Microsoft Teams and a million other, similar programs, that we can connect with right now. And of course, socially distant events as well. But okay, so let me ask you, Sarah, what is on the horizon? I know you said you're a student, you've gone back to school, you've done everything, DOD, active duty, National Guard. What is in the future for Sarah?
So I am loosely looking for employment. It would definitely have to be a good culture fit and something that I'm interested in doing and passionate about. So networking, continue to network and build my network is definitely on my homework list for this week in addition to schoolwork. So looking for that, continuing to network, continuing to work on things that I've already worked on. You can never work on a resume too much. You can never work on your interview skills too much. There's, practice, practice, practice. So that's what I've been doing. And that's what I plan on continuing to do is just work on what I need to work on in order to find that dream job.
Well, I heard PepsiCo is hiring, at least looking for great talent. So this is terrific. So, so Dana, similar question to you. I mean, obviously, you are, well regarded in your company, and you likely know, the continued road ahead. But for your experience, you've already had a couple of proteges under you. Are you still open, and would you recommend to other members who might be in our comment section who have the ability and the time to mentor to do so?
Well, first, I would like to say I've had a couple of proteges beside me. And then, I think that ACP is an amazing program. I feel like, and I've told Andrea Bryant, I would love to continue with ACP as long as they'll have me. I think that, again, I feel like I'm not only giving back, but I'm getting something in return. I'm gaining knowledge. I'm building my network, and I'm in it for the long haul. I think anybody who could get involved, it's an amazing program.
Yeah. So ACP, I know you guys are in the comment section. I'd like to have Dana, if I can have one more mentor. I'd like to have Dana as my mentor one more time, if someone will allow me to. So, okay. So last thought, Sarah, I recognize ACP has been an important part of your transition. Maybe your recommendation, your seal of approval on the program, and maybe your thoughts, your final thoughts on transition as well.
Absolutely. So it's really important to have a diverse toolkit in your transition efforts, right? So what I really loved about this mentorship program was that they're very flexible. I can call Jill every 2 weeks. I can call her every 2 months for advice. Something new pops up and I send her a text and I'm like, hey, can I talk to you about this and this? And a couple hours later, she's like, I'm on it. Like, let's talk. But I love the flexibility of the program. I love that, at the beginning, I was paired with a mentor who was not in the career field that I wanted. So ACP was fantastic in getting me paired up with a mentor that had a healthcare background. So the program and the people that I've worked with through this program have been exceptionally kind and understanding of the struggle of transitioning veterans and just really wonderful. So I think it would be a great asset to add to pretty much anyone's, like I said, transitioning toolkit.
I appreciate that. I think that's terrific, and I couldn't agree more. I think that they're really a great tool as you're transitioning in your tool set, because there are many others, but ACP is absolutely one of those important ones. Dana, any last thoughts as we complete our interview?
No, I really appreciate ACP for what I've received through this program, and then for calling me back for a second round. I mean, it was like I got called up to the bigs or something like that. I was so excited. So no, just a huge shout out to ACP and Andrea. Just a phenomenal job, and like I said, I would love to be involved for many years to come.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate both of you. I know you're incredibly busy. And I encourage all of our folks in the comment section and those viewing to go ahead and go to acp-usa.org. It's scrolling across the bottom. And I invite you to sign up. I mean, it's free. you sign up and they pair you with an amazing mentor like Dana and Jill, who Sarah had, and and you get a chance to interact, engage, and gain so much from them. Ladies, thank you both for your time. I very much appreciate it. And again, we'll be back on next week with another edition of this program in support of ACP, which provides mentors in executive roles, but also in the appropriate roles for the jobs that you're most interested in. And that's what matters most. Thanks to everyone listening. And please feel free to continue to ask questions in the comment section. There are people there who are answering your questions, and will continue to do so after the show is done. Take care, everybody.